All right. Morning, everybody. Good afternoon. Good evening. Just going to give this a couple of minutes before we get the show started. Thank you all for joining. Fascinated by the veracity of the time zones. God, a lot of ground covered on this call. All right, shall we? Well, everyone, customers of SAP SuccessFactors Incentives Management Solution, or in short known as SAP Commissions, or formerly as Callidus Cloud, are being asked to transition into SAP's HANA database. And this is ahead of a 2027 deadline. And while this is being positioned as a migration, in practice, it often resembles a full and complete re-implementation of the workflows, reports, the data layers, and every element of the operation itself, which raised a broader question. If you are doing your whole complete rebuild anyway, how should you really approach this decision? And to help discuss this today, I am joined by two esteemed experts to help us navigate these waters. First, Anne Soash, compensation transformation consultant, as well as the founder of Shibui Consulting, with a rich background in engineering, over 20 years of experience in compensation. She specifically specializes in operationalizing compensation strategies that work. And welcome to the webinar, I guess.
Thank you for having me.
You got it. And then none other than Mr. Bartosz Strożek, co-founder and CEO of SANS Partners, with decades of experience developing enterprise solutions with a strong focus on SAP technology. Bartosz, welcome, my friend.
Thanks, Daniel. It's great to be here. And for everyone on the call, don't be confused. Bartosz, people in Poland where I live have multiple versions of their names. It's all the same person. It's just me.
Well, great to have you all here with us. And yours truly, Daniel Shidvash, sales leader at Innovine. I've been helping companies across industries and different stages of growth evaluate and select SPM solutions fairly and honestly. Now, to give this conversation some structure, we have made sure to cover the most important things. I'm going to read some prompts, and these have been really collected based on the sentiment we've heard from actual SAP users. Hopefully this will cover a lot that our listeners are wondering about. Obviously, if not, we'll have Q&A at the end. And if you worry about forgetting your questions, please leverage the feature here on our tools to share your inquiry, and we'll be monitoring that actively throughout the conversation. Let's get started. Bartosz, the word migration suggests something that's fairly straightforward, but in reality, what does this transition really involve for most SAP Commissions and Callidus customers?
Yes, so when people think of SAP transition, it's usually upgrade of a version, and that's basically it. Now, when you think of the good old Callidus, how it was growing and transforming into a very powerful enterprise commission system, it was doing that by adding additional modules. Some of them best in class, for example, for data integration. It was using Informatica Power Center. For reporting, there was a lot of Crystal reports. The workflows had their own modules, etc. And moving that to SAP was a great challenge a long time ago when Callidus was acquired by SAP and got rebranded into SAP Commissions. Now, this migration is one step further. So all technological components are going to be now SAP native. So for example, no more Oracle database. It goes out of the window. It must be HANA. No more Informatica Power Center. It has to be the data sphere, right? Similarly for reports, for advanced workflows. And only a small piece, a very important piece, but small piece is usually migrated in an automated way in this process, and that is the core rule repository. And everything else needs to be analyzed, needs to be either manually or semi-manually moved from one technology to another. And of course, these days we have AI to help us with these tasks. But by far, this is not lift task. This is a much closer to real re-implementation than SAP would like to tell us.
That's a very fair point, Bartek. I know too often it's just simplified as the HANA migration, but it does truly touch on the reporting and the data layer as well through Informatica and the BI side. And what's been your experience like overseeing some of these HANA migrations, so to speak?
Yeah, so it's an important point to really stop and make sure, given the amount of work it is this the path you want to go down, or do you want to take a step back and survey the environment and see if there's another approach, as it is a big lift and shift. And so there's no time like the present to see if there's a better solution for you.
Very fair. Maybe a good segue to talk about the platform itself a little bit. Obviously, a key pillar of this decision begs on weighing the strengths and weaknesses of SAP Commissions, if you will, specifically. To be fair, these guys were pioneer in the space, but obviously a lot of challenges have since surfaced. But when it comes to SAPs today, to your point, Anne, what are the strengths of the SAP Commissions tool that people sometimes forget in the conversation? And where would you say the platform genuinely struggles, both technically or maybe even operationally?
Yeah, so I mean, SAP and Callidus has always been strong with handling very complex logic, really large organizations. I mean, I think at one point I had, like we were looking at having like 80,000 users on it for one company. Not a problem. But I think where it's really fallen down is ever since it was acquired by SAP, there hasn't been the same focus, the same improvements that you're seeing with other incentive-based platforms. And that's where I think that there is just, it's better to look and see where has everybody else progressed to as compared to Callidus, and are you missing some important functionality that would help improve your operations that they don't have built into the platform because they're so focused on getting this migration done versus improving the incentive product.
Yeah, I wonder, that's a good call out, Bartek. How much of this is really the focus or lack thereof from SAP side on this asset? How much are they really investing? How much new functionalities or wow factors have you seen since I guess 2018 or so when the acquisition was complete?
Well, one sign that is clearly telling me that this is not really a top priority for SAP is the fact that the Callidus product was moved from one organization within SAP to another, right? There was customer success, then there was SuccessFactors, then there was a separate organization. Technologically, there was significant improvement in terms of core of the product. So using benefits of HANA, of course, make things much quicker. But in terms of functionality, I don't really think that SAP is leveraging the modern approach as much as they could. It is still a batch processing engine. For good and bad, some organizations go really well with that approach. But these days, real-time processing engines are predominant, and they are giving huge benefits to organizations, also handling similar complexity to what SAP or Callidus can handle. So, and again, moving from Informatica Power Center to the data sphere. Yes, DataSphere is a very powerful engine, and if an enterprise is a SAP powerhouse, then that's obvious benefit to go that way. But then, if not, then that is moving from an industry standard, which Informatica has always been, to something that may be niche for our organization. And in that context, again, it may be worth revisiting if that is indeed the best move for organization.
Very fair. I think part of it is exposing the brand itself, right? It's SAP SuccessFactors first, which really puts the spotlight on the HRIS side than the comp. Frankly, personally, I can draw from my sort of tenure at Verison when we were acquired at IBM. It was part of a broader portfolio. Even the go-to-market motion had to be restructured to sort of adopt that. And it wasn't until obviously post IBM era that you started to see some really, real investments on the technology. And I think for speaking in confidence with some of the pro Callidus folks in the market, they are just waiting for that sort of refocus at some point, maybe through a similar event or a restructure at SAP. No, thanks for that. Obviously, great insight from real practical experience here. Now, maybe on strategic side, and I understand you've had to sort of reconsider this a couple of times, but once a company realizes that this is now, I think, as we've established, a re-implementation, a strategic question becomes unavoidable. Should we stay or should we go? How do you think that's ought to be approached, especially with all the stakeholders that are involved? What signals across this population tells you that the organization should take this seriously or evaluate alternatives? What factors should be considered and so on? A lot of questions.
Yeah. So when you start to understand the workload and the heavy lift it's going to take to migrate, taking that step back and talking to your key partners, in sales, ops, finance, IT, and looking at the big picture and helping them understand, okay, we're going to go through this big lift. If we're thinking about making a platform change, now is the time, essentially right before you re-implement. And you can, run through an RFP process and look at the key competitors to see, is there something you're missing that would actually give you more efficiency, would give you more capability if you were to migrate to a different tool instead of staying on SAP. And the decision may come down to, oh, we're going to stick with SAP, but at least you've gone through the process to make sure it's the right tool. But I think you'll see some others in the market are pulling ahead with their technology. And so you can get efficiencies and savings potentially by switching to a different product as you have the opportunity here. And instead of putting all that time into migrating, you put it into a re-implementation with a new tool.
Yeah, and to Anne's point, I mean, at the end of the process, it is perfectly fine to say we are going to stay with SAP because they are meeting our needs. I mean, it is still a very, very powerful rule processing engine. It is able to handle a big number of scenarios. The crediting module is fantastic, and I'm a very big fan of it. Now, there is at the same time nothing stopping people from looking around. I see absolutely no reason why people should basically take for granted that, hey, let's do this migration. and not use the opportunity to look around what other functionalities are there on the market today.
Very fair. No, I think I can absolutely attest to that as well. I think even if you have strong sort of stance on staying, you have nothing to lose, but so much to gain, even from negotiation best practices to consider the alternatives. So maybe a good opportunity to talk about the tech eval sort of motion. And maybe back to you. I understand again, you've both participated in this, but if you don't mind just talking through what organizations still get wrong. Because tech eval sounds very straightforward. Sounds like I'm just walking to a shopping mall and entering different stores, looking at what suits my needs. But what do you think are the most common mistakes or you've seen that the companies make when they're trying to evaluate different platforms?
One key thing, anytime you're doing a reevaluation and potentially re-implementing, it's always good to make sure you kind of clean up your house first. Take a look. How many incentive plans do you have? Is it the right number of incentive plans? Do you need to collapse or consolidate? Because by simplifying your environment, it actually can mean an easier implementation, less cost on the implementation. So that is one thing I always, encourage people to do is really take a look inside, understand your requirements truly in a more cleaned up space as you go into it. And then, really making sure you scenario test the tools, give them strong scenarios to work through. Actually try to, do the configuration yourself in the tool to actually see, is it really as easy as they say? I think that's one I've seen many times in terms of, oh, it's so easy to configure, and then you get into it and you're like, oh, that's a lot more difficult. We're going to need more people. That's another key piece I've seen that you want to dig into.
Absolutely. It is that the process optimization, I think, is often shortchanged. Folks view the technology as the fixer of all their problems, but it's only one side of that, good old triangle, the people and the process.
Oh yes, absolutely. And the fact that Callidus has always been a tool for larger companies, larger enterprises, right? And even though they have a lot of inertia, they also evolve. So the moment where a company is now is probably completely different from when it implemented Callidus for the first time, I don't know, those 5, 10, or even 15 years ago. So both in terms of process that Anne mentioned, and in terms of technology, I'm pretty sure there is a lot of redundancy. And it's a fantastic opportunity to ask right now, why are we doing things and why are we doing them this way and not another way? And maybe a simple answer is simply because people are used to it and not really because it benefits the business at the moment.
That's a fair point. I think it's not called out in the explicit sense, if you will. You mentioned the inertia. Tends to be with these enterprise size platforms, the dedicated resources, maybe something controversial for you, Bartek, to consider that are, full-time support of the SAP platform in this case, right? Could be others. And their bias would be to, retain the status quo. So there, I can see some contention like internally where, the right heads, maybe from the top, need to see through the alternatives and evaluate the technology, give everyone a fair chance, really, to represent what is best for the organization. Is that something that you've seen in this sort of journey, or am I
Oh
just
yes, and that is
hypothesizing?
no. This is only natural,
Right.
right? Because people like what they know, what they are used to, and
Right.
apart from all the quirks of SAP, if you have a robust working model that works month after month, quarter after quarter, then of course people will be reluctant even to evaluate alternatives. That is only natural. Now there is of course the role of the management and procurement departments to challenge that. and to introduce a little bit less of comfort, maybe, and challenge precisely why are we doing this? Why is that taking so much time? Why do we need so many people? Why do we have so many procedures?
Yes.
Maybe there is a better way of doing that. Maybe in the end, there is none. And then migrating to SAP.
Oh, is it
Ask
just
those
me?
questions anyway.
Oh, you're back. Sorry, I thought we lost you for 5 seconds. If you don't mind, just going through the last 5 seconds.
No, sorry about that. So what I was saying is that the role of procurement, the role of management is there to challenge the status quo. And if in the end, the answer to all these why questions is we need to be doing that because our business is so complex, etc. Maybe there is also an opportunity to improve business process as well, right? But if there are none or it's not the right moment, then decision to stay with SAP is only natural. That still should not stop people from asking all those challenging questions.
And I see you nodding in agreement. Sounds like you have memories, fun memories of
Oh,
this.
so many memories. The pushback you get when you're even just
Yeah.
wanting to evaluate, when you're talking about making a change, you really need to bring like we actually brought our old configurators along on the journey with us, brought them into demos so they could see the difference, because the difference was stark, and they're like, oh wow, I had no idea a platform could do this, or a platform could like have this nice of a reporting capability that the employees can easily see how they're getting paid and why they're being paid. And it starts to open up their minds a little bit more to the possibility. It also gives them the chance to start pressure testing the systems as well, and asking the really hard questions that we might not think of because we don't work in the system on a daily basis. And then and so then you might find a potential gap, or it can actually bring them along and over to your side and say, no, we really need to make a change, and here's why it'll be better. And so it is amazing the resistance you get, but just bringing them along with you will definitely help kind of pave the way for the future and get them on board.
Absolutely. I mean, look at the advent of AI. That's going to disrupt how we evaluate technologies, right?
Mhm.
I think I saw recently a presentation of the maturity curve you need. Like, if you don't have the right foundation, the processes, to your point earlier, and garbage, good old garbage in, garbage out with AI, right?
Yep.
So, and I think it's healthy competition to, keep your vendors on their toes, to make sure that they are keeping up with the latest and greatest. It's a competitive edge. Our competitors are addressing the same challenges, aren't they? And they're, evaluating the same options, or if not others as well. So you would be shortchanging yourself not to prompt this exercise, do a tech eval for many other reasons. I guess my next question is the quiet considerations that ought to be made as part of this. Having seen so many platform transitions, Bartek, what are the less obvious considerations that don't get enough attention early, but they could determine, frankly, the success or failure of a project?
Well, one of the not really that obvious, but when you say it, it is obvious consideration is price, or maybe price model, because people working with Callidus are so much used to the predominant model of paying per payee that they're quite often surprised that there are different models that may be better suited to their situation, right? So there are models where you don't pay for a payee the same amount of money. You pay for a payee that is a manager a different amount of money than for somebody that is active only once or twice per month, or even per quarter, and that's it. That's a huge opportunity for savings. There are models that focus more on storage than on anything else. And for some companies that have simply a lot of complex rules, but little transactional volume, that again may be an opportunity. So that is one thing. Another thing is back to the point of companies evolve. The fact that things are done today in a special way that also is very relevant not only for processes but also for technology. Maybe there are better interfaces that if you run an RFP, you don't really, or you shouldn't again really run an RFP to replace one-to-one of the current technology stack, right? If you have different data interfaces, maybe there is a better way to connect them. I mean, Callidus was favoring flat files for a very long time. These days, you have APIs, real-time processing, etc., etc. Communication. Some companies are going more and more mobile, right? This is something that you should evaluate. Maybe that is going to be, especially in situations where you have big number of people that are commissioned, a mobile app can be something that drives their behavior even more. Some of the predictive functions, especially with the advent of AI, the number of opportunities to improve are really great. And it's not just, hey, this is going to cost us that much, and this is a new tool, so let's not learn it because it's going to be very cumbersome for us. We know SAP. Again, it goes back to the discomfort that the management and the purchasing departments should be introducing.
Yeah, on pricing, it's also influenced how these vendors are packaging, the different functionalities. It's getting so competitive. Before it was just seats, subscription seats, and you have end-to-end access to everything the platform has to offer. Now it's almost like a menu, especially, and I foresee that continuing with the sort of the advent of AI again. Like agentic AI is all about picking and choosing which specific areas or modules of the tool you like to prioritize over the other. And any specific nuggets you would share for anyone, considerations that often don't get the love and attention they need as part of this exercise, and what determined the success of a project?
Yeah, so I'm going to take it a bit of a different way in terms of project success, and that's team capacity. I have seen too many projects get dragged out for so much, like years longer, because the team isn't ready for this large of a project, as they already have their day-to-day jobs, right? They're running as fast as they can to keep up to make sure that these employees are being paid timely and accurately. And all of a sudden now you're layering on this huge project. So whether you're migrating and going through that process, or you're moving to a new tool, make sure your team has the capacity to truly get it set up correctly, or else there's going to be missed requirements. They're not going to be able to get the testing done well, and the project is either going to go live and not succeed, or you're going to continue to see it drag out for extra time. And so that would be my biggest piece of advice for these projects.
It's interesting. You said I was doing research. What also gets shortchanged on the people side is the skill dependency, right? I mean, if the more nuanced of a skill required to operate the technology, whatever it may be, then the talent pool becomes an issue. Obviously, the dependency on that individual, especially if it's one or less FTE assigned to the operation, right?
Yeah, definitely.
But Daniel, to your point again, the migration to SAP, you are still required commission rules according to the good old Callidus logic, right? Even if you migrate to the latest stack, it's not that you build a procedure in ABAP and it works. So the learning curve for any new person to start writing rules in SAP Commissions, SuccessFactors, or incentive management SuccessFactors, or however you call that, is still going to be very, very high. And that is definitely something that people should be considering.
maybe let's talk about that a little, Bartek. What should they do during a re-implementation, whether it's on SAP itself or a different platform, to avoid the same problems, right? Because some of it, I mean, these are configurable platforms. They're not off the shelf, obviously, to your point. So part of it is ought to do with the deployment, doesn't it? Um, yeah.
Well, all platforms have, weak spots. All platforms have
Yes.
advantages. There is not a single platform that is great for everyone, right? So assuming that a company chooses a platform that is suitable to its business case,
Hmm.
the first thing I really emphasize to start on is inventory of processes, technology, in inventory of, then going down granularly to inventory of plans, rules, inventory of reports, in inventory of data integration points in and out, right? And then going through the optimization process of, do we need that? Do we need that? Why do we need that? And then in the end, it may turn out that the reimplementation is going to give a lot of benefits, not because of the new technology, but because things have changed to the extent that we are going to implement a much, much simpler system. And there is even re-implementing to a new platform or re-implementing to the SAP, the same approach should be predominant. Let's start with analysis. As Anne said, let's take a step back. I cannot emphasize it strong enough that taking that time is absolutely mandatory. And people think that, 2027 is so far ahead, and we don't really have to hurry. The implementation is going to happen very quickly, or migration. That is not the case. Time flies. Again, we're talking usually about large enterprises, complex business scenarios. If there is going to be an RFP, it's going to take 3 months,
Yes.
half a year, etc. Right? And all of a sudden, you don't have any other option than to migrate to SAP. Again, this may be a good option for an enterprise, but that should not be the only answer.
Yeah, I guess just on timelines really quick, it sounds like this 2027 date is now set in stone. I know they've delayed it a couple of times, which farther emboldens your statement that, just really factoring in enough bandwidth and prioritizing those key milestones ahead of that migration will be even more important now than it was before. And what are your thoughts on that? Just, what traps should we avoid, reigniting the same problems if we were to re-implement on SAP or not? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that short timeline will force some companies just to be like, oh, we're out of time. We got to
Right.
move forward, and not take the opportunity to truly take that step back. And I don't think we can stress that enough, but it's such a great time to clean up your house and get, and truly, instead of just doing the exact same thing as you're doing before, truly take a step forward, move your process forward, move your plans forward. It helps with employee engagement as well. And so just don't delay on the decision. Get started now. Make sure everybody understands the burning platform of the work it's going to take, and the fact that now's the time to really get ahead of it before you have no choice but to slam it in to the migration and hope for the best.
Yeah, and in terms of things that consume that timeline, I mean, you need to factor in parallel runs. The new process, whether it runs on the migrated SRP or any other system, of course, in ideal world should take the full payout cycle, but companies usually don't have time to run 2 systems in parallel for the whole year, right? But it should take, I don't know, a quarter at least, or something like that. This is going to consume resources that should be properly booked. This is going to simply use the elapsed time once the system is built and migrated and it's just running in parallel with the old one. It's also going to consume some money, because at some point of time, you probably will have to pay for two systems at once, even if you're migrating to SAP, right? SAP is usually not planning any parallel periods. So that should be very properly planned ahead.
Yeah, I think I was thinking very tactically, is what is the next immediate step I should do today, mid year way through the 26th. And I think that about covers it. But anything else you folks would advise, maybe Bartek would start with you, to SAP users on obviously the legacy stack, I should clarify, that they should, consider doing today.
Well, the famous saying says it's later than you think, right? So
Yes.
my first advice would be, do not linger. And if using external consultancy or simply using AI to run a business case for you and probe whatever assumptions were made long time ago during the original implementation, start preparations, right? Plan that, even start sketching that, and see where you end up. Let's just assume the worst case scenario. We need brand new system, completely different, retrain people, full reimplementation, and simply try to understand if what it's going to take to execute that, how much time you're going to need. Because we're talking about 2027, it's June already. Oh my God, I thought it's May.
Yes.
But it's June already. Okay, the deadline has moved from 2026 to 2027. Maybe it's going to move again, but maybe not. And I'm pretty sure that nobody is going to accept the message that we don't have time.
Yep. Yeah. Don't bank on that timeline moving again. The sooner you can start and create the brain platform for the leadership around what the effort this is going to take and how the team needs to dig in, the better off you'll be in the long run, to at least just get the process started and really understand what amount of work do you have ahead of you and how are you going to resource that and make sure you can get it done in time.
Wonderful nuggets. I'm sure folks will take advantage of us. All right. Well, that sort of exhausts the prepared questions I had for this conversation. Maybe let's open it up for the virtual floor, if you mind, to the Q&A. So, folks, there is a dedicated feature, as you all see, and if you're attending this live on Teams, where you're able to share any thoughts or questions you may have for our expert panel. So, just give it a second as folks are articulating their questions. Yeah, I think they started pushing for HANA only for new customers in 22 or 23. Even then, the migration adoption, I heard, has been sub 50% since that date. So I'm sure there's a lot of folks out there who would resonate with sort of what we have described here, and we hope this was fruitful to them.
Yeah, it's hard to prioritize a voluntary migration. Takes that deadline generally to get people moving.
For sure. All right, and we have a question from Ted. Thank you, Ted. What are the clear signals that staying within SAP after the HANA migration might be the wrong or right strategic decision? What are the clear signals that staying with Bartek, you want to take that? Go ahead.
Yeah, that's a very broad question. I mean, basically, how fast can a car be? It really depends on what are the goals of the organization, right? Because if you can imagine an organization that says, minimal disruptions in this area. We want to have the same processes for whatever reason. I don't know. Our priorities right now are somewhere else. So let's make it reasonably quick, reasonably painless. Let's not rebuild the organization. People are used to how things work right now, right? Yes, they will need to be trained on, I don't know, new approval modules, new data sphere, etc., etc. But in general, we hope things are going to stay the same, right? That's basically an obvious choice to stay with SAP. Having said that, if an organization is open to exploring new ideas, things like fundamental change in terms of commission processing, right? If people were happy with periodic processing in the past, but now they want much more real time, it's not going to happen in SAP. It simply will not, because that's not the engine. It's just hardly possible. If people, well, SAP, of course, bringing all this quality at the same time is quite expensive. There are cheaper tools on the market. Maybe they're suitable enough, right? That would be also a clear sign that a different platform can still be considered. There are things like number of people that work supporting the process. So tools usually, one of the purpose of ICM SPM tools is to minimize the maintenance overhead, right? If your team is large, and one of the goals of the organizations is to reduce that, that probably is a clear sign that another platform is going to do a better job, because SAP or Callidus is, with its all powerful functions, is very well known for being very hard to maintain.
Very fair. Very fair. Don't feel obliged to answer to every question, both of you. And if there was anything, please feel free to jump in. If not, I know we now have an influx of questions. I could move on to Anand. Is there an AI-centric plan for SAP commissions? Have you, I guess, in your crossings with the demonstrations, maybe of the tool, have you seen anything specific on the AI approach that they're taking? I know every vendor has their sort of strategy.
Right. So there was a recent announcement that SAP is going to let Claude into its internal repositories, right? Mm-hmm. And Claude will be able to get to the raw data, not through in and out APIs, but simply to the core of the engine. That is, on one hand, extremely powerful. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, right now, one would be really careful on using that without proper testing. I mean, we are still in the age where AI can deliver huge value and make some mistakes. And let's not forget, we are touching people's money here. I mean, few % of errors is still not acceptable. It simply has to be perfect. Right?
Yes, consistency is key. And I wonder, from the operations side, any disruptions that you've seen due to AI that might also be actively considered? I know every day is different.
Every day is different, but like for the last several years, they've made great progress around even just answering agent questions. Like an employee doesn't understand how they're being paid, why they're being paid that way. And like answering that question continues to get better every day, every year. And that takes a huge workload off the incentive admin team if those questions can be answered using AI, and truly only the mistakes, the errors, like, hey, this sale wasn't captured, actually get to the incentive admin team. That is a huge lift for the organization, and I think a critical component as you're looking at different tools in terms of who has good inquiry AI assistance through the process.
Yeah, and my 2 cents on that real quick. I'm not as versed into SAP, obviously, so maybe just broadly, what I've seen in the space is when it comes to AI, I think there is a recognition that everyone is fighting for the screen time, almost like the phone apps, right? So when there's an inquiry, where does it actually generate? Is it on your HCM? Was it on your ServiceNow or Workday, for example, or SuccessFactors in this case? And then the root of the inquiry, even if it's commissions related, may not reside in the comp tool itself. It could be on a file sitting on SharePoint or elsewhere in the stack. So I think everyone is recognizing that you need to be part of a broader ecosystem, and that's if you're looking for that seamless AI experience through prompts of Claude, Bartek alluded to with that partnership. they need what's called the MCP approach that's getting standardized actively to be able to integrate and exchange resources freely. And I wonder where SAP is on its journey there. Next question is from Kat. How are companies replacing, maybe Bartek for you, sounds technical, specific feature related, I think. How are companies replacing the landing pad / data processing layer in the new architecture? So maybe that's the Oracle versus HANA.
No, that's not that part. That is the part, well, a little bit. That is the part where data integration comes in. So Callidus offered a long time ago a platform as a service that was called Landing Pad, which was basically a piece of VMware with Unix, with Oracle database, with Informatica that was able to do a lot of data pre-processing before things got loaded into Callidus or SAP Commissions, because it was still active these days. That piece goes completely away. It's not going to be supported for a number of reasons. Licensing is one of them. Of course, SAP doesn't really want to support licenses for Oracle or Informatica. And that means that this piece needs to be 100% rewritten. Again, AI is going to help a lot with that. But that pre-processing needs to happen somewhere, right? And this is probably one of the most important parts of this. Is not migrate. This is not a simple migration message, because all the flows in all the workflows in Informatica, all the scripts in Bash, all the procedures in PL/SQL will now have to reside in DataSphere. And that is basically building a data integration layer anew, which is a huge part of how the system is going to consistently provide quality results.
Love it. And I'm not sure if you anything to add there, but if not, I was just going to mention that it's fascinating to me that the stack that has been proposed is obviously SAP all over. It doesn't mean it's the best of breed for every element of the stack. So, I can't imagine Informatica now, the decision to rip and replace that, for example, is to do with, maybe advancing the capabilities of that layer, but more to do with SAP getting more favorable, commercials for itself. If I could just maybe say that bluntly. I see Annie nodding, so.
Well, and they're not really giving you a price break for that, are they? Even though they're starting to use all their own technology?
I don't think you get a concession, no, for adopting their technology. It's more
it's
inferior.
an important question to ask, right?
Right.
I mean, they're making themselves more efficient. Are you what are you getting out of it if the technology may not be quite as strong?
Right. Well, we have a question. Which part of the migration is most consistently underestimated? Is it data integration? Is it the SQL or SQL rewrite, or the reporting rebuild? Judging by what you said, is it on the data side? Yeah.
There are, of course, obvious parts, right? Like the data rewrite or reports rewrite. If you have web reports, they are simply gone out of the window. You need to rewrite them manually. Yeah. But I would like to point out to something that is usually underestimated, and that is historical results. I mean, if a repository is migrated one-to-one, which SAP can do, then that is fine. But if a company is making a slightly larger re-implementation, meaning it's also reorganizing its rules and processes, people tend to forget that they need to bring all the historical results and all the historical versions of reports to show the data properly. It is not going to be active anymore, right? The old repository is simply going to be shut down. So if a system has been running for the last 5-10 years, there's a lot of data and a lot of insight. And sometimes it has been regulated for how long this information needs to be available to employees, right? So that is something that people usually overlook, assuming that, oh, it's going to be easy because we just do a lift and shift, which I said many times, it's just not.
Yeah, a lot of moving pieces, that's for sure. And lastly, from David, if data pipelines, reporting, and workflows, maybe a good follow-up, need to be rebuilt anyway, how do you decide whether to stay in SAP or reevaluate the SPM stack? I feel like we kind of addressed that, but anything else would add from what we discussed earlier? And
yeah, and that's why I think we'd recommend doing a true RFP and treat this as a new implementation versus, and really doing that full comparison of what's the capabilities of the tool, what's the pricing of the tools, and looking at it with totally fresh eyes without putting too much of a thumb on the scale saying, well, we already have this, so we should stay with it. Just take that holistic look so you really are making a wide-eyed decision as you go into it.
Maybe that's a good way to sort of end it, unless Bartek, if you have anything else to add, any other parting words?
No, I cannot. We've been repeating that many times, and I cannot stress it enough. People should use the opportunity. I mean, in this case, change is really an opportunity to take a step back and look what is beneficial today versus what was beneficial 10, 15 years ago. Again, if the decision is to stay with SAP, use all its benefits, then fantastic, as long as it is conscious decision as of today.
Yeah. And with that, I guess we're coming to the end of our time today. I want to extend a massive thank you to our incredible panelists. Crowd shouting,
Thank
I'm
you,
sure.
Daniel.
Thanks, Daniel, for having us.
Thank you both. This really drives home the point that whether you want to stay or you want to go, this transition is a rare opportunity to fix the foundation and not just move the house. And most importantly, I want to thank everyone that joined us today, whether live or is watching the recording. We know how busy your schedules are, and we appreciate you spending time with us. As we mentioned in the beginning, this HANA deadline is coming, 2027 is fast approaching, and the decision for you to over the next few months will shape your compensation roadmap for the next decade, potentially. So if you're an SAP customer currently staring down this migration, you want to figure things out, don't hesitate to reach out to us. You can connect with Anne at Shui Consulting, Bartek at Sands Partners, or myself, Daniel, right here at Innovine. So thank you again for watching. Have a great rest of your day, everyone. Good luck.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.